They say strangers are just new friends waiting to happen, but what if they turned out to be total psychos instead? After meeting a friendly couple on vacation, these parents decide to visit their farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, but no matter how awkward it gets, their hosts keep gaslighting them to stay, and nobody realizes they're in danger until it's already too late. We're here to break down the mistakes made, what you probably should do, and how to beat the insane parents in Speak No Evil. This trip is about to turn into a fight for survival. On a vacation to Italy, parents Louise and Ben are exploring the city with their daughter Agnes when they run into a British couple staying at their hotel. They introduce themselves as Patty and Kira, and they end up hitting it off so well that they all decide to have lunch together. Over their meal, Ben explains that they're American transplants living in London, but they've been having some trouble fitting in. Agnes goes off to play with their son, Ant, who has trouble communicating because he was born without a fully developed tongue. Noticing that their kids are getting along, Patty invites them to visit their farm once they're all back in the UK, but soon they're gonna realize that meeting him was their biggest mistake. Thinking that it will be good for Agnes, they decide to visit Patty's farm for the weekend just a few days after getting home. Driving for hours through the open countryside, the family eventually arrives at the house just after dark. Their hosts quickly come out to greet them, with Patty cracking open some bottles of cider for him and Ben, while Sierra takes the girls on a tour of the house. First is the bedroom where the parents will sleep, and then it's up to Ant's room in the attic. They find the boy quietly playing with his trucks and a bed for Agnes on the other side of the room. It's different from what they're used to, but they have no idea that these people aren't as wholesome as they seem. Okay, let's pump the brakes on this Patty wagon right now. Patty here might seem like a nice dude, but as far as I'm concerned, he's been giving off nothing but red flags ever since they met. Every time that they've run into each other, he's been doing something to slowly break down their boundaries. It started off small, but then it got dangerous when he decided to take their kid for a scooter ride all around town. I mean, he had another couple's 12-year-old kid on that thing with no helmet, but started whipping it around the block like he was playing crazy taxi with their lives. Since they're harder to see and offer you less protection, you're actually about 28 times more likely to die on a scooter than in a regular accident. As a parent and a doctor, Patty should have understood that what he was doing was incredibly dangerous. But the fact that he keeps pressuring them into it is a clear sign that he might not be as chill as he seems. After only knowing the guy for just one whole day, they decide to spend an entire weekend at his random-ass farmhouse out in the middle of nowhere? No cell service means that they can't call for help, and it would take hours to reach them even if they could. And since they arrived after dark, they could easily end up getting lost if they have to make a quick exit. But it's what they saw upstairs that really has me triggered. Patty's supposed to be a doctor, right? So why's he got his son living like Harry Potter over here? The poor kid's stuck up there in the attic with nothing but a bed and a single lamp in his room. And somehow, that's not even the worst part. Take a closer look at that door. What do you see? The sign says Jane's room, and there's a lock on the outside that's high enough so that the kid can't reach. All passengers, this is your captain speaking. It looks like our flight has just been diverted to Red Flag City, and I'm grabbing a parachute and jumping the out. Seriously though, I think the better choice would have been to get a hotel nearby. That way, you won't end up in an awkward situation where you need to excuse yourself to leave once you realize that they're crazy people. It's a little too late for that now, but it's not too late to leave before the situation gets worse. I'd make up an excuse that one of us forgot an essential medication at home, yeah, and we need to go back for it right away. Then we can leave without hurting anyone's feelings and reschedule for later if they still want to give this friendship a shot. At the very least, Agnes should be sleeping with her parents, not up in that creepy-ass attic where they can't tell what's going on. And I'd be ready to throw hands to get out of there at the first sign of trouble. Down in the kitchen, Patty breaks out something special for dinner, their favorite goose, Libby, who he butchered and roasted just for the occasion. Cutting off a slice, he approaches Louise to take the first bite, even though he knows that she's a vegetarian. Pressuring her into it, she finally caves and pretends to like it, but spits the meat back out as soon as he looks away. Ben offers to take the trash out on the side of the house, but when he turns around, he finds Ant standing right behind him. The kid stands there with his mouth open, acting like he's trying to tell him something, but Patty comes back and calls both of them inside. After putting the kids to bed, he locks down the heavy shutters on all of the windows, explaining how they're meant to keep out robbers. Kira complains about their internet being down, but Ben says that he's happy for the chance to get off the grid. Just then, the couple hears Ant making strange noises from upstairs, but his parents reassure them that he'll settle down in just a second. Feeling uncomfortable, Louise almost gets up to check on their daughter, but that's when the boy stops crying just like they said. In the bedroom, Ben questions why she let them pressure her into eating meat, but his wife explains that she just wants to be respectful. Going to the bed, she notices a strange stain on the sheets and starts to question why a doctor would live in a house like this. Agnes comes and says that she can't sleep, so Mom lets her spend the night with them instead, calming the girl down with a breathing app on her phone. The next day, Patty takes them out and shows them all around the property. While the parents are sitting around the fire, Agnes wants to play on a swing, but her new friend refuses to step out of the way. The man tries calmly at first, but when Ant won't listen, he aggressively pulls him aside, saying how his father would have smacked him already. Making his son push the swing, he notices that Louise is having neck pain and gets uncomfortably close as he helps to relieve the pressure. Since he's a doctor, Ben decides to let it slide, but he has no clue just how bad things are about to get. Next, Patty leads them over to the lake for a swim. The family didn't bring any bathing suits, but he convinces them all to strip down into their underwear instead. That's when Louise notices that his wife has strange bruises on her chest, but she claims that it was just from an accident at the farm. The dads and kids jump first, even though Louise is nervous that the water might not be safe. It turns out that Ant here can't even swim, but Kira insists that he'll be fine, and they all join together chanting for the woman to jump in. Back at the house, the hairdryer almost explodes from a bad outlet, and Louise here decides that she's had enough. She tells Ben that she wants to go home, but that's when Kira comes and invites them out to dinner at a special restaurant, putting them in an awkward position where they can't say no. Once she leaves, Louise is upset that he's taking their side over hers, but they decide to give the couple another chance. Before dinner, Patty explains that this trip is for adults only, and he hired a babysitter to watch the kids. They hesitate about leaving their daughter with a total stranger, but since they've had nannies before, they decide that it's all right. While the parents are gone, the kids play a game of hide and seek with the babysitter, but Ant here has other plans. Leading her up to the bedroom, she shows Agnes his father's collection of expensive watches. The boy takes one out and starts pointing at the back, desperately trying to show her the engraving, but it's written in a language that she can't read. That's when they hear the babysitter coming, and Ant hastily returns the watch, sneaking past without the man noticing. Okay, something weird is definitely going on here, but Agnes just found the biggest clue so far. Patty's still doing his usual boundary-pushing routine, but he keeps escalating it to make them feel more and more uncomfortable. It's a sign that he's doing it just to manipulate the situation and see how far he can push them. But it's what we've seen from Ant that should really have them concerned. For some reason, Patty never lets Ant spend any time alone with the other adults unless it's under his direct supervision. When he came out to see Ben by the trash bins, he was clearly trying to tell him something, but Patty cut him off before he could finish. Now, Ant supposedly has a condition called congestial aglossia, which stops your tongue from fully developing. In severe cases, the tongue only looks like a small stub, and they'll also have crowded, misaligned teeth. But we can see here that Ant's teeth are perfectly fine, and his tongue looks fully formed with just the front half missing. This doesn't match with the other condition, and it's another warning sign that something more sinister might have happened. Then we have the watches. Ant's secretiveness about showing Agnes the collection makes it seem like he's telling her something that she's not supposed to know. She couldn't read the engraving, but there's something about the names and initials on it that sticks out. The watch belonged to someone named Peter, not Patty, which is a nickname for Patrick. His wife's initials start with C, but the initials here are AM. And the only thing that matches up is his name, aunt. Thanks to Google Translate, we can figure out that the engraving is actually in Danish, and it says, "Happy 40th, dear Peter, love AM and aunt." So if Patty's British and aunt is his son, then what's he doing with some Danish guy named Peter's extremely expensive watch, who just also happened to have a kid with the exact same name? Suspicious much? Ben and Louise need to stop rationalizing this strange behavior and start picking up on the red flags that are staring at them straight in the face. Aunt definitely knows something, and with whatever is going on, Agnes is afraid to spend the nights with him, even though they're friends. So there must be some reason why. As the parents, I'd take Agnes aside and find out everything that's been happening between her and Aunt. Patty will get suspicious if the adults start poking around, but kids are trusted to spend time together alone, so we can use this to our advantage to find out more. He might not be able to talk, but I'd just get him a pen and paper and have him write it down. Even drawings would work to help get an idea of what's going on. If they ask him simple yes or no questions using body language and context clues to fill in the gaps, then they can get to the bottom of what they're really hiding before it's too late. At the restaurant, the conversation eventually turns to their time in the bedroom, and Kira announces that she and Patty here like to roleplay. Unfortunately, she's not talking about RuneScape, and actually starts pretending to give him that old shaboing right there at the dinner table, letting it go on for an uncomfortably long time before they reveal that it was just a joke. Meanwhile, back at the house, the boy waits until nighttime to show Agnes the dozens of scars all over his chest, but he has to stop when they hear the parents coming home. In his room, Patty notices that one of his watches is out of place, and immediately knows that someone might be catching on. As for Louise and Ben, they get into another argument when he brings up what happened at dinner. It turns out that the wifey here was sexting another dad from school, and it makes him feel uncomfortable when she takes shots at his masculinity. The conversation starts to get heated, but they decide to squash the beef and hug it out, never realizing that Patty was listening from the other side of the door. Just before sunrise, Louise wakes up with a strange feeling and decides to go check on the kids. Upstairs, she's horrified to find that both of them are gone from their beds, but it's what happens next that's even worse. Rushing to the parents' room, she finds her daughter in bed with this family of total strangers and carries her back to their bedroom as quietly as she can. Waking Ben, she tells him what happened and says that they need to leave now. Grabbing their things, they quietly sneak out without the couple noticing, and the boy watches through the window as they quickly drive away. They're only a few miles down the road when Agnes announces that there's a big problem. She can't find her stuffed rabbit, Hoppy. Ben pulls over and digs through their bags, but no luck. And with the girl having a panic attack, his only choice is to turn around and go back for the rabbit. At the farm, Ben parks outside the gate and tells the others to sit tight, promising that he'll only take 2 minutes. Well, Louise only waits for approximately 2 seconds before following him inside, and sure enough, she finds her husband arguing with Patty about why they left in such a hurry. He tries to keep things polite, but she's done beating around the bush and straight up calls them out for letting her kids sleep in their bed. Patty acts like he has no idea what's going on, but his wife admits that he didn't know. Apologizing, she explains that they had a daughter who sadly passed away at just 12 weeks old, and got caught up in the moment when she heard Agnes crying. That's when Aunt comes down with the girl's doll, motioning that he wants to show them the chickens. And somehow, they actually convince the family to stay for another night. Okay, you can't seriously tell me that these 3 morons are about to fall for this crap again. I'm sorry, but I don't care what your excuse is. As soon as I walked in and saw little Agnes getting Neverland ranched, I'd be doing them a favor by just leaving quietly and not fully crashing out. Back at the restaurant, Patty went on a whole long rant about how parents are the root of all evil, which is strange because he seems very proud of being a parent himself. This doesn't sit right, and it could be a projection of how he treats Aunt behind closed doors, even though he puts on the appearance of being a loving dad. His constant bringing up of sensitive and personal subjects like their preferences in the bedroom crosses way too many lines for someone who they just met. But that's not because he's trying to be friendly. He's using it as a way to drive the parents further apart, making it easier to manipulate and control them. And that becomes even more sinister when you remember what happened with Agnes. From the way that Kira explained the situation, it's almost like she's trying to step in and gradually replace Agnes's parents, and that's a red flag the size of the Empire State Building. Add this to the fact that Ant has scars that he keeps hidden around the adults, and there's no way that they should ever consider spending even 5 more minutes in this place, let alone another night. Now, with that being said, we had to go back for Hoppy. Trust me, I get it. But Louise really should have stayed in the car like Ben said. It's very much safer in there, and by going inside where they're all together, this just gives Patty more chances to keep rizzing them into submission like he always does. Instead of calling them out for what happened, I would have played dumb and tried to catch them in a lie. By telling them what she was so upset about, this gave them a chance to come up with some more excuses. And they need to get away from these creeps as soon as possible. It's time for Ben to stand on business and tell Patty that this visit is OV. I'd get the hell out of there while we still have the chance, and call someone to check on Ant once we're a safe distance away. This time, they all decide to split up, with the dads going out fox hunting while the others stay back at the farm. While the kids are painting eggs, Ant uses the opportunity to pass the girl a note, but just like before, it's in a language that she cannot read. His mother starts to come over when she notices him trying to talk, but quickly grabs the note and eats it before she can see. As soon as they get a chance to talk, Agnes very clearly tells her mom exactly what she just witnessed. But now it's her who feels like being polite and plays it off like it's no big deal. Later on, while they're making lunch, Louise accidentally slices her finger while chopping up tomatoes. Rushing her over to the sink, they ask Patty for some help since he's supposed to be a doctor. But that's when he starts saying that he made it all up. He confesses that he only said it to impress them, but then drops the act when he can't keep it up any longer. And they all have a laugh over yet another classic Patty prank. They're having lunch outside when Kira here starts aggressively critiquing their daughter for chewing with her mouth open. Louise steps in when she won't knock it off, telling her to quit, giving the kid a hard time. But Patty explains that in his wife's culture, all of the adults work together to discipline the children. He makes her apologize to Louise and Agnes, but then expects her to apologize back. And she reluctantly admits that she blew it out of proportion. That's when Ben asks to see the dance that the kids have been working on, thinking that it might lighten the mood, but boy oh boy is he in for a surprise. The DJ puts on some Cotton Eye Joe and the kids start breaking it down, but Patty here won't let it go on for more than 10 seconds without telling Ant that he's f***ing it all up. The others try to calm him down, but this guy is dead serious, and it makes Agnes so uncomfortable that she wants to stop. Giving it one more try, Patty shouts and chucks a biscuit at his underperforming son. At this point, it's bordering on a crime, but when Louise calls them out, they turn the whole thing back on her for trying to parent their kid now. The argument ends with Patty sending their son to his room, and Louise telling her husband that they need to get out of there. Hesitating, he says that he wants to stay for a cup of coffee first, and she storms off furious that he won't back her up. The man crashes out for a power nap, and Kira begs them to stay at least until he wakes up, saying how it'll be safer for her and the boy. Meanwhile, Ant waits until his dad is asleep before sneaking into the bedroom and quietly removing a set of keys from his belt. Going outside, he tosses a football to Agnes, but intentionally throws it away so that they end up on the other side of the barn. The boy signals for her to follow, using the keys to open a locked room where there's a trapdoor hidden beneath the floor. Leading her down, they end up in a secret basement, and as she looks around, she realizes that it's full of other people's stuff. That's when Ant grabs a picture from the bookshelf, opening it up to show her photos of his parents, but there's a problem. Each time, they're with a different couple, and they have a different kid. All of a sudden, Agnes realizes what's actually going on. These people kill the parents and take the kid, and her family are the next ones in line. Opening his mouth, the boy reveals that he wasn't born without a tongue. Patty cut it out to keep him quiet. Thinking quickly, she snaps a picture with her phone and rushes back out to warn her parents. But getting away won't be as easy as they think. Okay, well, that's not good. Maybe now Ben will finally understand why everyone else wants to get out of there, but the truth is that these poor kids have done more to solve this case than their parents ever could. Ant only tried to tell them 1,000 times, and without him sneaking to get the keys, they'd still have no idea that they were all about to die. At least now they have a chance to get away, but they need to be careful with what they're about to do next. With the house being so isolated, they don't have any neighbors or cell service to call for help. Fighting hiding Patty on his home turf means that he'll know the layout of the farm and surrounding area, and have control over the most important things like weapons and their cars. This makes it much harder for them to escape or fight back, and he'll only become more dangerous once he senses that something is up. They're also extremely intelligent and manipulative, and have been gaslighting the family so hard that they don't even know if Kira is working with him, one of his victims, or somewhere in between. On the positive side, at least Agnes knows that they're in danger, and she has the photo evidence to back it up. She has to get to her parents somehow without them noticing, and since Patty is still asleep, now is the perfect time for them to make a move. As for Kira, she acts like she's afraid of Patty, but if that were true, then why wouldn't she want to leave with them instead of making them stay even longer? We can't trust her at all, which means that everyone besides Aunt is an op. Right now, while Patty's still asleep, Agnes needs to secretly show her parents the evidence on her phone. At that point, there'll be no doubt that they need to leave as soon as possible. While Louise distracts Kira, Ben should get the keys to the car and anything else that they'll need. Meanwhile, Aunt and Agnes should find another excuse to go play somewhere out of sight. As soon as they're ready, they can all get to the car as quickly as possible and then speed out of there before Patty even knows what's going on. Just in case, I'd look for something to use for protection and be prepared to throw down if it came to that. But otherwise, they should do their best to get away without a fight. Aunt sneaks back upstairs, hoping to put the keys back before anyone notices, but when he walks in, the man is already waiting behind the door. Luckily, he hasn't realized that the keys are missing yet, but he needs the right opportunity to get them back in his pocket. As the man goes to leave, Aunt signals that he wants a piggyback ride. Patty agrees, thinking that it'll make him look good in front of the guests, and the kid uses the chance to put the keys back without him catching on. Outside, Agnes sneaks over behind a bush and uses a thorn to prick a small hole in her leg. Showing her mom the blood, she pretends that she's having her first period and gets her alone long enough to show her the photos. Meanwhile, the boys are outside throwing the football, and Patty here happens to notice that the trap door looks like it was opened. After seeing the pictures, Louise keeps it calm in front of the kid, telling her to stay in the bathroom with the door locked. Doing her best to cover it up, she walks outside and calls for Ben, getting him alone so that she can fill him in on the situation. Now it's time to grab a weapon, and she finds a box cutter on one of the shelves, but they still need to get out of there without a fight. Embracing the fear, she tells her daughter to be as emotional as she wants, because they're going to use it as a distraction for why they need to leave. Coming out of the bathroom, they break the news to the family that they've decided to go home. Patty still tries to convince them, but they insist that they've made up their minds. Taking it in, he acts like he's completely supportive, but deep down inside, it's obvious that he's struggling to hold something back. When they get out to their car, surprise, surprise, it looks like somehow they got a flat tire. They decide to just drive on it anyway, but Patty insists on patching it up, dragging Ben to a shed around back to get some tools. He hesitates for a second at the door, but the man grabs his things and fixes the tire without any trouble. Now they're finally ready to get out of there, but just when they're about to leave, the man points out that Hoppy somehow ended up on the roof. Ben here is taller, so Patty wants him to climb the ladder, promising to hold it super duper steady while he's up there. The man almost breaks his neck in the process, but he gets the bunny and makes it down with all of his bones still in one piece. The only problem is, Patty still isn't done just yet. Louise gets in the car saying that she hopes to never see them again, but just as they're about to pass the gate, the man picks Aunt up and yeets him straight into the pond. Running to the rescue, Ben jumps out of the car and rushes into the water, barely managing to get the boy before he drowns. At the same time, Patty shuts the gate with a remote, and when the man gets back to dry land, he sees that the couple has taken his family hostage, just like they've done a dozen times before. Okay, and there you have it, folks. Who could have seen this one coming, besides everyone who isn't a total dumbass? Usually only one of the parents screws up this bad, but I've got some bad news for you. Ben and Louise, you too just f***ed up. I guess this is what we should expect from the people who trusted a family of total strangers enough to bring their own kid to some creepy farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. And what do you know? The trouble started as soon as you two showed up. You didn't make it 10 minutes before the guy was force-feeding Louise goose meat and making your daughter sleep in what was basically a prison cell, at least until he thought it would be a better idea to let her sleep in their bed instead. I mean, that right there should have been all you needed to see, but somehow you actually let them talk you into staying for another night. Meanwhile, poor Agnes is over here trying to tell you that Aunt keeps dropping hints like Dora the Explorer trying to solve a murder mystery. And your response is that it's not nice to say he isn't normal, sweetie. Like, can you please get your heads out of your asses for 1 second and actually listen to what this kid has to say? I guess not, because this whole time Patty's been playing you both like a fiddle and you're too busy fighting each other to even notice. You think that's bad enough, but even after you found out the truth, you were still acting like complete morons. Ben, you knew this guy was a killer, but you left your family alone and followed him into a shed with a steel door and a padlock on the outside? The worst part is that the lock was still on the door. You could have slammed it shut, locked Patty in, taken the kids, and got out of there. But instead, you waited until Patty threw him in the lake to step up and be a hero, even when it was obviously just another trap. And as for you, Louise, you were in a locked car. I don't know, maybe try running him over or just driving away. Anything besides just putting your hands up and saying, "I surrender." These people don't let victims go, and they definitely won't be letting you go now that you know their little secret. Might as well say bye-bye to your tongues, because Ben and Louise, you f***ed up. Taking them back to the shed, Patty ties everyone up and makes the woman empty out their bank accounts. With no friends or family in London, all they have to do is tell their landlord and the girls' school that they're moving back to the States, and nobody will ever have a reason to come looking for them. When Ben asks why they picked his family out of everyone, he says that it was all because they were too PC for their own good. He knows that people like them are too worried about being polite to trust their instincts, and that's what makes them the perfect targets for his trap. Filling up a syringe full of sedatives, he says that it's time for the tongue removal part of the evening. But Louise here won't be going down without a fight. As he crouches down to cuff her wrists, she suddenly grabs the box cutter from her pocket and spins around, slicing open the side of his face. Jumping up, she grabs the shotty just as Kira turns to face her, pushing it back towards Patty just as she fires off a shot. In the chaos, the others manage to get a hold of some tools, cutting themselves free while the moms battle it out. Slicing her arm, Louise takes the weapon, and Aunt grabs the keys as the man lies in pain on the floor. The woman begs them to take her too, trying to act like she's just another victim, but by now they know better than to trust a single word that she says. Anne locks them both inside as they rush back towards their car. The four of them jump into the Tesla and start to speed away, but they barely make it out of the driveway before they're cut off by a mysterious truck. Suddenly, the chef from the restaurant gets out and starts blasting with the double barrel, forcing them to throw it in reverse and dip right back to the house. Terrified, they haul ass and slam the door, locking the place down so the killers can't get in. But now they're also trapped with no way to escape. Meanwhile, Patty and Kira are still fighting in the shed when their friend here comes in and cuts the lock. He says that he wants out of the deal, but now that the family's seen his face, the man points out that he has to help catch them. Otherwise, he'll be screwed either way. Inside, Louise tries using the phone to call the cops, but Kira quickly unplugs the phone line, leaving them stuck with no way to call for help. Instead, they decide to barricade themselves in a room on the second floor, pushing a heavy cabinet against the door so that they can't get in. Using an old photo of the house, she figures out the best window for them to escape, saying that they can climb out and then run to the woods. Ben's on the verge of a panic attack, but his wife finally helps him get his act together. And that's when the ops suddenly cut the power. Okay, at least now they're finally fighting back, but it looks like taking cover in the house might have been a mistake. With Patty and Kira still trapped in the shed, that made Mike the only threat, and luckily it looks like they have one of those buckshot-proof windshields that come standard on all Teslas these days. When Mike fired his second shot without hitting anyone, he had to reload, and that was their chance to either drive around him or go straight through him. It's true that those types of gates aren't designed to resist the force of a vehicle traveling at speed, so if they hit the gate going at least 20 miles per hour, that should have been enough to plow straight through and still leave their car drivable enough to get away. Now they're in a tough situation. They're trapped by 3 heavily armed attackers who know the property like the back of their hands and won't stop until everyone in the family is dead. Plus, they cut the power, but that doesn't have to be a bad thing because remember, the darkness works both ways. So Louise and Ben can use the opportunity to move stealthily and set up some ambushes. They do have some time before the attackers get in, and hopefully that phone call will bring help even though she didn't have time to explain. So now they need to get prepared to hold out for as long as they can. They've already barricaded up the house, so they're one step ahead when it comes to defense. Now, as for offense, they need to use their options very, very carefully. Louise still has 1 shot left, and she'll want to save it for a critical shot at a key target like Patty or Mike, since taking one of them out would instantly level the playing field. Agnes also got her hands on the syringe full of sedatives, and that could drop someone with 1 hit if they have the right opportunity. For now, they need to use the safety of the house for as long as they can, but know what escape route they're going to use if they get overwhelmed, and either run for one of the cars or just go for the woods on foot if they have no other choice. The whole time, Patty starts taunting them by blasting cheery music out of his car. Looking around, Ben spots the man's stash of booze and realizes that they can use it to make a Molotov cocktail. If they can land a shot from the window, then they might be able to set the barn on fire, and hopefully this will bring the attention of the local authorities. It is a solid plan, but there's just one problem. When he opens the window, Mike here nearly takes their heads off with a blast from his shotgun. Louise uses their last shot for suppressive fire, giving the man a chance to tuck the bottle, but it uselessly bounces off the roof and crashes down on top of the car. It's safe to say that the plan is not working out, so their only choice now is to fortify the room and try to survive whatever happens next. Outside, Patty tells Mike to get up on the roof, trying to ambush them from 2 different directions. As for the family, the parents hide the kids inside of a closet, telling them not to come out unless they hear their mother's voice. Searching for the weapons, they find some drain cleaner and a hammer in different parts of the house. Just then, Patty comes to the window and starts taunting Ben about how his wife texts other guys. But this only makes him more angry. Suddenly, the car that got hit with the Molotov explodes in a ball of flame, but now Mike makes his way up to the roof, and they can hear his footsteps as he breaks inside. Downstairs, Patty finally gets in through a back door, and his wifey sneaks in through the basement. Realizing that he's in the house, Louise grabs the fork that he used to feed her the goose, and her husband hides in a closet, waiting to jump Mike as soon as he gets the chance. Seeing Patty in the other room, the woman takes cover behind the cabinet, but accidentally pokes herself with her own fork. The sound of her pain gives away their exact hiding spot, and now all that she can do is hold on as the man starts trying to break in. He eventually manages to get an arm through, but she takes the fork and shanks him with it as hard as she can. In response, he starts blind firing into the room until she forces him back, and she can hear Kira sneaking up the basement steps. Running for her life, Louise locks the basement door and runs into the next room, hiding just as the killers regroup and go back on the hunt. They're about to go upstairs, but that's when Aunt accidentally coughs, revealing that they must be hiding somewhere in the bathroom. Listening closely, Patty thinks that he hears breathing coming from one of the closets, but it's a trap. Using the breathing app as a distraction, Louise jumps out and sprays him in the eyes with the drain cleaner, creating a window for her and the kids to escape. While the killers are distracted, the family runs upstairs and almost crashes right into the other guy, Mike. He fires a shot, but it accidentally hits the mirror, and while the others run for their lives, Ben jumps out from a closet and tackles them to the ground. Unfortunately, he's not much of a fighter, and the other guy quickly gets the upper hand. He's just about to spike him on a piece of broken glass when, all of a sudden, Louise comes in and brains him with the hammer. It looks like Mom just caught her first body, and that makes one killer down with 2 more to go. Okay, I guess they're technically winning, but I'm getting kind of annoyed with how they keep on wasting all of their best weapons. The shotgun and the Molotov could have been game changers if they'd only used them more effectively. Then, down in the bathroom, she ran a perfect ambush on Patty only to miss the opportunity to take his pistol. That extra firepower would have been a pretty big help, but instead they had to resort to whatever you can find at Home Depot. Now that Mike is down and Patty is effectively out of the fight, this makes Kira the only remaining threat, meaning that they actually have a decent chance of surviving this as long as they make the right decisions, okay? First, they need to take Mike's weapon and search him for spare ammunition and his phone. and the keys to his truck, or anything else that they can put to good use. Getting their hands on the shotgun makes them a much more formidable threat, and they'll need all the help that they can get if they're going to make it out of this place in one piece. One option here is to fortify themselves upstairs. They can use the downtime to block off any entry points and turn the area into a defensible position, where they can hold out until help arrives. This might be the safest option in the short term, but it also gives Patty and Kira a chance to regroup, so they need to be careful and not wait too long. Option 2 is to go on the offensive and actually attack Patty and Kira before they have the chance to get back on their feet. This one's guaranteed to end the fight quickly if they succeed, but it's also the most dangerous option, and they should only go for it if they're fully confident that they're gonna win. The third and final option is to escape using the ladder, and that's exactly what they're about to do, but they need to be careful. That fall could be just as deadly as spending another night at Patty's, and they'll want to have somebody watching their backs just in case. Shocked, Ben searches the man for his car keys, and they head for the top floor while Patty here is still trying to get the chemicals out of his eyes. Telling Kira that this is all her fault, he sends her out to finish them off by herself, while she sits there in the tub crying about it like a little baby. Lucky for them, the ladder where Mike came up is still on the roof, but they have to be careful not to fall on the way down. They don't really make it far before Kira shows up in the window, but it turns out that that was her biggest mistake. Suddenly, Louise comes from the side and hits the lady with a roof tile, causing her to slip and plummet 30 feet to her death. That makes 2 bodies for Mom and just 1 more to go, but now the ladder is gone too. Agnes is dangling from the gutter, but Pops uses his dad's strength to pull her back to safety. With no other way down, he realizes that his only option is to hang from the roof and let himself fall. The impact sends his knees straight to the Shadow Realm, but he's able to thug it out long enough to get the ladder back into position. Now all that's left is for everyone to climb down, and he sends Agnes to hide by the car while he waits for the others to reach the bottom. They're almost home free, but now Patty is back on his feet, and they can hear him coming from somewhere in the darkness. Expecting him to come around the corner at any second, they're shocked when the man suddenly shows up right behind them. And to make matters worse, he's got their daughter. Ordering them to put down their weapons, he promises that he won't hurt the girl because now that they've killed his wife, he's decided to replace her with Agnes instead. Well, Agnes doesn't really like the sound of this and decides that the better option is to shank him with the syringe full of sleepy juice that she picked up back in the shed. The sedatives take over almost instantly, leaving Patty helpless as he collapses to the ground. The parents decide to spare his life, but there's still one person who needs to get his revenge. Crouching over him, Aunt here picks up a brick and decides to give dear old dad a taste of his own medicine. That makes all 3 killers down. And getting back into the Tesla, not a single word was spoken for the entire drive home. Speak no evil, and horror movie season keeps on truckin'. An interesting remake to be sure. Definitely brought the story to English-speaking audiences, and I can't miss an opportunity to see James McElroy in a movie. Like, he's the GOAT, we all know that. I had a good time watching this movie, and if you would do anything different, I don't know why you would, but if you would do anything different, leave a comment down below so I can check it out. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm Ben, I'll see you guys in the next video, and have a damn good day.